grave information for the future of our country, our republic, for the First Amendment, and for journalism in this nation. Now, what I'm about to break here was the subject of a congressional hearing today where the head of the Federal Bureau of Prisons was asked by Congressman Matt Gaetz and others about Owen Shroyer. Now, when Owen was sentenced to 2 months in federal prison for being outside the Capitol on January 6th, peacefully trying to stop people going in, a lot of people said, hey, get over it at 60 days. It's not 22 years like other innocent people. And we get that. My concern was that once they got him in their clutches, in their federal prison, no matter how good a quote inmate he was, they would really try to pull some serious shenanigans. And if he quote has infractions, they could try to extend his time in prison. That's been my main concern. So Owen went in a little over 2.5 weeks ago. They put him in solitary confinement for the first week, locked inside a jail cell all day and all night as a COVID protocol. And I said, clearly, this is political retribution. But then he got out for 1 day in general population. We have this from inside sources. And he was put back in solitary, this time for 30 days at least, for calling out from the prison, which is his First Amendment right. We've had countless prisoners over the years call in from federal prison. I even had people call in from death row before. We just saw, obviously, Tucker Carlson travel to London, England to talk to Julian Assange in prison. So even Julian Assange is allowed to talk to reporters. Now, here's the new development. We have our sources, and I have to leave it at that, and I got this information last week, but we've only now confirmed it. From inside the prison that he's been sent to a special area of the sprawling federal prison in solitary confinement 24 hours a day because he called out of the prison and the folks he talked to recorded it and then put it on Twitter. And he said nothing against the prison, nothing against Obama, who's the real president right now. Just came out in NBC News that he is running the White House, as we said 2.5 years ago. So this is crazy. So my lawyer, it's also Owen's lawyer, Norm Pattis, went to Congress yesterday and today, talked to Congressman Matt Gaetz, talked to others, and they're very concerned as well because the Bureau of Prisons, under the direction of the federal prosecutors out of D.C., is persecuting anybody related to January 6th. Women that walk between the velvet ropes and didn't attack anybody, didn't touch anybody, are getting 6 months in jail, and they're locking them up in solitary confinement as well. They've beaten people, put their eyes out, blinded people. This is true torture, ladies and gentlemen. So people that burned down buildings and shot people, they got bailed out by Kamala Harris. Remember that? But now Owen Shroyer is spending a month in solitary confinement, and then when he gets out, he'll have weeks and weeks and weeks left. God knows what they're going to do. In fact, it might be better after this they just keep him there because they can have an inmate attack him. If he fights back, they'll charge him, and he's gone, folks. He's gone. This is a message to me. They're saying, we'll get your co-host, we'll get your talk show host, we'll get your crew. And it's meant to scare the rest of the crew here. Just like they're trying to put Trump in prison, they try to put me in prison and countless others. It's a message to you that you should cower and be afraid. That's why libertarians, conservatives, populists won't even protest anymore because they saw what happened at January 6th. Meanwhile, Muslims are taking over military bases and airports and, I mean, it's happening everywhere. Attacking the White House. I don't endorse that. We're not doing that. Imagine if we behave like that. So a totally peaceful individual, Owen Shroyer, is now in solitary confinement. We're going to play the clip, show the tweet by Don Jr., Jack Posobiec, and others, where they talk about this. But this is a big deal. So my gut instinct was they were going to pull something big once Owen got in, and they've done it. We've had the lawyers check the law, everything else. You're allowed to call out. You're allowed in your little time, 15 minutes, to be on a radio show or talk to your grandma or whoever you want. But they're saying that's not the case. And here's what's even crazier. They won't talk to his lawyer. They won't talk to his family. He's not able to call anybody. And so Norm Pattis has already been to D.C. for 3 days. Next, he's going down to Louisiana to try to get in. And it's the same district of the new Speaker of the House. He's now informed it looks like he may or one of his representatives go to the prison. And they're so arrogant, they don't care. So members of Congress have tried to call. Lawyers have tried to get involved. They've tried to find out where Owen is. We're told nothing except for our sources. And I'm going to leave it at that because obviously there's a lot of people that work for the president and others that are really upset by this. Owen is a Boy Scout and a great guy. And again, it's bigger than Owen. This is an attack on everybody's free speech, everybody's freedom. This is outlawing political dissent and outlawing questioning elections. And they're getting ready to steal the next election. It's just come out in Congress, big reports, how they manipulated the last election, election before that, how they blocked all this important news and information, how they buried, obviously, the Hunter Biden laptop. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. So this is a very, very serious situation. And I think we should pray for Owen, and I hope they don't Epstein. They may, as a message to everybody out there, kill him. Now, I'm not trying to be dramatic here. I'm not trying to scare people. They want to intimidate us. They want to scare you. Owen is not suicidal, and if they do kill him, they're going to be held responsible for what they've done. But that's how serious things have gotten in this country. I think there's a chance they may kill him in the prison. And it's disgusting. But they know they're being watched, so they may not do it. But they already turned the cameras off with Epstein and broke his neck in 3 places. So I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I had a bad feeling about this the whole time. And that's just where we are. So we need a congressional investigation. We saw the weaponization of the IRS against conservatives under Obama. This is the third unelected administration of Obama, and it's disgusting what our country puts up with. Child traffickers who've been arrested multiple times, smuggling children and selling them in sex trafficking. In one case, 5 times, don't even get jail time. But Owen Shroyer is now in their clutches, and do you think once they get somebody in their clutches, they're going to turn loose? Not unless they know there's a major spotlight. And I'm not saying all the people at the jail are bad or the prison. I'm not saying all the federal guards are bad. And people are watching in the prison. But I'm saying from D.C., from Obama's White House, he's got a literal building complex just a few miles from the White House, the real White House. This is being directed as a message to us all. So please pray for Owen. He's not suicidal. And let the system know if you try to Arkansas him, you're not going to get away with it. It's going to be too far. God bless you all. You can tune into a show every day. Harrison Smith's hosting it, 3 to 6 p.m. And we just are praying for Owen. He should be out of solitary. He should be able to call his family, his lawyer, but he's unable to. His lawyer, again, was putting in calls. The first time he was in solitary, no callback. So he's back in solitary. We're not being dramatic. These are dramatic, dangerous times we live in. We're not the ones being dramatic. The system is being completely out of control and is doing things that are just literally the very essence of tyranny. So please pray for Owen, please pray for InfoWars, and please pray for this country and that we defeat this incredible tyranny, because if they get through Owen Shroyer and Alex Jones and Donald Trump, they're going to get everybody else. God bless and good luck.
I was very heartened by your discussion of site visits to our prisons to get firsthand understanding of what's going on there. Sometimes members of Congress have had challenges doing that. Could you give us some advice if we wanted to glean those benefits and get that firsthand experience? What's the best way for us to go about that with your team?
Thank you, Congressman. So if you have your team reach out to our Office of Legislative Affairs, we will be happy to make that arrangement.
Thank you so much. Does the Bureau of Prisons retaliate against people based on on constitutionally protected speech?
I have been very clear that retaliation will not be stood for on my watch.
And you're confident that that's being observed throughout the Bureau?
I'm confident that message has been delivered, and if anyone engages in retaliation, we will hold them accountable.
Are you familiar with the matter of John Strand?
That name is not familiar to me now.
So Mr. Strand was a witness at a hearing that we had regarding some of the civil rights concerns of people who had interacted with the Department of Justice in January 6 matters. He was convicted, sentenced at FCI Miami, and I'd received word that he had been placed into enhanced confinement and into higher acuity securing as a consequence of information that others had put out on his Twitter feed. So is that something does that ring a bell to you?
Congressman, I wouldn't be able to speak to an individual's circumstances regarding their behavior inside our institutions. What I can assure you is that if an individual is placed in our special housing unit, It would be for conduct that happened inside the institution.
So what's a special housing unit? Is
A
that,
special housing unit is one of our restrictive housing placements that could include disciplinary segregation, protective custody, and would house individuals that either were at harm to harm themselves or others, or had actually engaged in misbehavior inside our institutions.
what I'm worried about is that Mr. Strand gave us testimony about some of his concerns, and as you know, people give us testimony. We sort through what's right and wrong and should be acted on and shouldn't be acted on. It's not gospel, it's just testimony. But then thereafter, people were posting on some of his social media platforms his concerns about the treatment he'd received at the Bureau. And then I sent a letter to you concerned about that because, like you, I don't want anyone retaliated against for constitutionally protected speech. And thereafter, I got a letter back from the aforementioned Office of Legislative Affairs in your office, and they say, in part, Mr. Strand was moved to a secure housing unit with increased supervision and frequent employee contact on September 26, 2023, pending completion of an investigation. So I guess my question is, when someone, is that like akin to what we would normally think about as solitary confinement? Those words, secure housing unit with increased supervision and frequent employee contact?
We would use the word restrictive housing.
Okay. So what's this then? Because this guy's a non-violent, he was never violent toward anyone, so I'm just wondering why the assets that we fund for the highest acuity violent people would be used for this purpose.
Congressman, we use that special housing unit for individuals that engage in any sort of misconduct inside our institutions. I don't know what he was found to be guilty of by our hearings administrative process that would warrant his need to go into restrictive housing, but I assure you we have administrative processes that people have to go through before those placements actually occur.
Yeah, I get that you can't know the conditions of every single prisoner throughout the Bureau. This is one I've ripened and sent to you because I am worried that throughout our Department of Justice and what we've endured, that there are some people who are sort of being used as pawns, and they're being mistreated in order to send a message to other people. And I'm grateful that you've said here that is not your doctrine. You don't want to see that happen, but you also haven't been able to share with us an entire confidence that that isn't happening in some cases. And I'm worried that it's happening here. Have you heard of the matter of Owen Shroyer?
No, that name is not familiar to me.
Very similar fact pattern. You know, somebody who'd sort of spoken out, was prominent in the public, was convicted as a consequence of activities on January 6th, and now feels as though there's specific Bureau of Prison retaliation. I don't think any group of people should be retaliated against, so I look forward to taking you up on the offer to perhaps go in and do some site visits and see how people are being treated and get that information directly. So I hope I get prompt cooperation from OLA.
Man, that video!